Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit, find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app. Andrew DiCecco is here. We're going to talk a lot about the football playoff games, all the movement that's happening. Sean Payton is having a press conference right now. He has stepped down as the head coach in New Orleans. That's 9 head coaching vacancies right now in the NFL. We'll get into all of the offseason stuff, Brady, Manning, and more. Football at 4 starts now. Andrew DiCecco, what is up, man?
Hey, man, how's it going?
All is well. I know that this was a wild football weekend, so we're a couple days since the dust has settled. Of all the things that happened this weekend, Andrew, what was like your favorite part of the divisional round this weekend?
I mean, it still sounds weird to me to say that the Bengals are headed to the AFC Championship game, so I think it's really cool to see a team that has gone that long of a drought without seeing any sort of, especially for that fan base, without seeing any sort of payoff. To see that happen was pretty cool, and to really see two quarterbacks and Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen really go head-to-head and show that they're on a completely different level from any other quarterback in football right now. I thought that was just a masterclass of quarterback play.
Now, we've had a lot of discussion over the last 24 hours yesterday and into today's show about the quarterbacks that we saw. And obviously Mahomes and Allen, they really stood out. You mentioned Joe Burrow. Rodgers lost. Brady lost. But if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, Andrew, and you watch that football this weekend, and you're Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, did watching those games alter any of your offseason thoughts?
Well, to get a quarterback on that's in that tier, that's always going to be on every single team's at the forefront because they're so hard to get, right? So more often than not, you're looking to find that guy. So I have to think, regardless of what happened over the weekend, that was always going to be at the forefront of their minds, being the pass-happy offense that they are and what they look to, and what they ultimately want to be. However, it's nice to want it. It's one thing to want it, but you also have to find the compensation has to be manageable for what you're looking to do, and it has to sort of like a give and take in that regard. So right now, I mean, in order to, let's say, I don't know, a Russell Wilson, to get somebody like that, I mean, they're going to want a king's ransom for that, and there's going to be you have to really look at how the roster is constructed, and if you're willing to do that, and if you really are a quarterback away, which right now the Eagles are not a quarterback away from being on that level. So I think that you need to really build through the draft and fortify other areas of the roster, and then hopefully Jalen Hurts continues to make his strides, and then you see what you have there.
You know, that's an interesting point because there's so many people, you know, you watch these games this weekend, and it's, hey, you got to find that quarterback, you got to find that guy. And I'm going back and forth, Andrew, with a lot of these people saying you can't neglect the rest of your roster, though. And it's like that balance of how long is too long before you pull the plug on your quarterback?
Well, I think next season with another year of continuity, I don't know if there really is a set timeline for when to pull the plug or what's premature or what's not. But I think that you want to see – I think the Eagles are okay with going into the next season with Jalen Hurts if nothing else sort of pops up. But I think that you really want to see him take these strides and improve areas of his game that were really problematic in several points of the season where, you know, the game was hanging in the balance and the quarterback play wasn't where it needed to be. So you want to see him make those strides with the same coaching staff in place, see if he can have some sort of continuity and build and continue that rapport with the current staff in place, and see what he's able to do. And you know what? If he's not the guy, well, then next year you'll have an opportunity to sort of land that franchise quarterback in the draft.
Well, and it's interesting because you look at all these teams. I think all 8 teams have a different story that played this weekend. And one of them, Kansas City, I think is a real interesting one. You're a draft guy. We always enjoy talking about the draft. They've had really one first-round pick, and it happened to be Patrick Mahomes, that has made an impact for them. And this team that they have put together, they have not built it through the first round of the draft, really. This is a team that is built through good, smart scouting in the middle of the draft, bringing in free agents. This is not one of those teams that you say, they've nailed their first-round picks in this draft, and that's why they are where they are. They happen to nail the most important one, but they didn't have a pick in 16, 18, 19, or 21. So they're an interesting story of how to build a team.
Yeah, the Chiefs are a classic example of a franchise that has proven that there's not one way to build a roster, right? There's not a blueprint for building a successful playoff, Super Bowl-bound roster year in and year out. It comes with good scouting. There's a myriad of different ways that you can construct a roster. And I think that when you look at what the Chiefs, they've made the most of their opportunities in the draft. They haven't had the premier draft capital, but that hasn't held them back from being one of the more prominent teams in football for a long period of time. And also you have to look at coaching. Andy Reid has really taken what he has on offense and made it a juggernaut. And I think that the staff that he has in place, Mike Kafka, is a tremendous coach that's poised to be an offensive coordinator in this league and possibly greater. He just surrounded himself with good coaches and innovative offensive minds, and that's just a force to be reckoned with. So that there are many different ways to build a team. So you don't necessarily have to have that franchise quarterback in order to do so. Look at the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers, obviously, that game there. Let's get your take on, because Aaron Rodgers, that's one of the teams that has a quarterback, weren't able to get the job done. Why was Aaron Rodgers not able to get the job done against San Francisco?
Well, the obvious reason would be because of the special teams blunders. And like I said on your show, I picked the Niners to win. I thought that the pass rush would ultimately be too great and get to Rodgers and affect his throws. And it did. I mean, the defense was swarming, and the 49ers ran the football well, and they played tough defense. That's a recipe for success when you get into the playoffs, and that's what they have. And I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a brilliant offensive mind, and they have a good player in Deebo Samuel who was able to hang in there just long enough to make enough plays before he left. I believe he hobbled off on that final sequence. So hopefully he's able to play this weekend. He's a very fun player to watch. But I just thought it was a bad matchup, plain and simple. It was a bad matchup, and Rodgers certainly didn't get any help from his special teams, and ultimately that's why they're not playing this weekend.
Rodgers next year, Green Bay or someplace else?
I think it'll be someplace else.
Yeah. Let's go to the other NFC game, because Tom Brady also lost. But Matthew Stafford, I mean, there was a lot of questions about Stafford entering this game, myself included. Not a huge Stafford guy, but I thought he had a really good game, and he was part of the reason why they won that game. But in the end, it feels like the Bucs were undermanned in that game. Too many mistakes, undermanned, and the Rams, who we talked about on Thursday, they're going for this. I mean, they're another team. They are saying the draft be damned. There are other ways to build our team. The draft isn't it. And that team there, it's like now or never, and they got a huge win.
Yeah, obviously I don't agree with the Rams' philosophy, but it's hard to argue against it because they're right. They're right here on the doorstep of being in the Super Bowl. But that said, it's kind of scary to think what the Buccaneers would be had they had their Chris Godwins and a number of other guys in place, Antonio Brown. Because all that said, as diminished as they were right there at the end of the game. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the magic of Tom Brady and how prolific he is as a passer. But, I mean, you got to tip your hat to Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford had a lot of questions to ask this offseason and, a lot of pressure to live up to because the Rams went and got him. They were aggressive in getting him. And now the spotlight's on you, right? You're in LA, and you're now looked at as the guy and the piece that's supposed to put this team, over the hump. And I thought he delivered when many, including myself, had questions or little reservations as far as whether he was able to do so. So I mean, he answered the bell, and now he's going to have another tall task this weekend, but. You have to be really pleased with what you've seen in the postseason from Matthew Stafford so far.
Okay, then Brady. You got a couple of options, I think, for Brady. Andrew, he'll be back with the Bucs, he retires, or he'll be someplace else.
I think he actually comes back for one more year with Tampa Bay.
Okay.
I think it's going out in this fashion, and knowing Tom Brady, he's an ultimate competitor. I think this will be a little tough pill for him to swallow. The sour taste is going to be in his mouth for a while. I think he's going to want his one final chance at revenge and kind of ending on a high note.
All right, now let's go to the final game on Sunday night, which was the epic Bills-Chiefs game. You got those two quarterbacks. Now, it's not a case of, hey, who you got to pick one of those two because obviously they are outstanding. But which of those quarterbacks was more important in their teams, is more important to their teams, Mahomes or Allen?
I would probably say Josh Allen, because outside of Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis really came alive, but I thought that his play was elevated by the play of the quarterback. And I think that when you have all-world players like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, those guys are ultimately going to comprise the stew of any offense and elevate any offense. So I think having Patrick Mahomes back there only amplifies things. But I think that when you look at the Bills' offense and what they have, I think it's really been sort of ignited with the play of Josh Allen, the improved play over the past couple seasons.
Right. Now, I'm glad you said Allen, because some of the things that he does, you've probably seen these stats of him and Hurts and their first 2 years in the league and all that kind of stuff. But forget all those things. Allen was a guy, and I want to get your opinion. He went from a 58% passer to all of a sudden, he's an accurate passer. He's got this big arm, and he does it with his legs. He is a guy who they build a whole offense around that guy. He's sweeping to the left. He's sweeping to the right. The 4th down and 4 play, if they would have won that game, we'd be watching him, elude tacklers. What has he done to put himself into, this category of quarterback?
Well, the talent was always there. He was more of a raw talent when he came out. Obviously, he had the arm talent, which you just can't teach. He had the overall athleticism, the size. And then it was more refining those things and becoming a more complete quarterback. And I think working with Brian Dable, I think that really helped him a lot. And Josh Allen really putting in the work in the offseason and working on these things. And then all that coupled with his innate athletic traits really helped translate into becoming, a premier quarterback in the league. And he's a classic example of a player who some had written off because of his inaccuracy issues and, just being late on throws. You could see that there was potential there if he was able to hone some of that stuff in and get that squared away. And he did. And that's a classic example of why you need to be patient with young quarterbacks. It's not always going to be instantaneous results. And, if you can see the talent there, you just know that you just got to be patient because you have something there. And now you're seeing that he's, one of the top quarterbacks in football. So
what happens, all right, if Garoppolo not only gets to the Super Bowl, but wins the Super Bowl? How does San Francisco play that?
I think Jimmy G would be in for a pretty large payday from another team. Having invested in Trey Lance, I think that they sort of are tied to him as their long-term quarterback of the future. And listen, Jimmy Garoppolo is an adequate quarterback. I think he's been alleviated. Some of his deficiencies have been alleviated by a strong defense, a good running game, Kyle Shanahan's innovative coaching tendencies. So, is he a confident starter? Yes. Is he someone that's growing to all of a sudden become one of these prolific passers and have this, prolific aerial attack? No, that's not really his game or his forte. He's more of a game manager. But I think that, if they do, should they win the Super Bowl, I think that he'll be still be the quarterback for someone else.
What happens in your mind in Tennessee? Do they bring Tannehill back again?
Yeah, because then you venture into the great unknown. I think you bring him back because he's a quarterback that can win you games. However, I do think that they have to invest in a young quarterback to develop behind him, sort of like what they're doing in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And and sort of just develop a young quarterback to take his place eventually, because you know that Ryan Tannehill, for all intents and purposes, isn't your long-term answer at quarterback. He's someone that can keep you in the thick of things in the playoff hunt, but ultimately you're going to be restricted as far as what you're ultimately able to do because of his limitations.
All right, we got these two games this weekend that we're going to take a closer look on Thursday with Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. There's 9 head coaching openings, Andrew. 9 right now. Sean Payton has stepped down today, stepping away from coaching. You have to trade for him if somebody wants him. So I would imagine he is not going to coach in 2022. But who is your favorite head coaching option out there right now? If you were a team, your favorite team doesn't have a coach, which guy should that team go after?
I mean, there's certain assistants that I like. Like, I'm a big Mike Kafka guy.
Well, there's a name.
Doug Peterson. Yeah, Mike Kafka is someone that I've been on for a couple of years now as sort of the next one up,
Yep.
the next bright offensive mind, and that's the way the league's really trending when you look at the Kyle Shanahans, the Sean McVays, and so on. Doug Peterson's another obvious choice, someone that has a Super Bowl ring and has a good sense of emotional intelligence, and in a way to really acclimate and relate to his players. And I think if you're a team like let's say the Jacksonville Jaguars that's coming out of a really bad experience with Urban Meyer, he would be a logical fit there. I mean, there's a lot of options out there. I think in the right circumstance, I mean, Sean Payton would be the best option. I just don't know if he intends or plans to coach this year, or if he even wants to.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, Peyton, that whole thing is interesting because he is under contract with New Orleans through 2024, so someone would have to trade to get him to go there. Obviously, the talk is, what happens to Mike McCarthy in Dallas. There's been a lot of buzz, Andrew, about Peyton going to the broadcast booth for a couple of years and then going back to the coaching. I think this has become a really interesting story to kind of keep an eye on, because this whole other thing is going on with Al Michaels. He's leaving Sunday Night Football. They're trying to woo him to go to Monday Night Football. He might call the Amazon games. If he goes to Amazon, he's trying to get Aikman to leave Fox to call the games on Amazon with him. So there's a lot of things kind of happening here with Sean Payton leaving. That just adds to it, because he's one of the names that they're saying Fox could target to replace Aikman. So keep an eye out on all that good stuff. All right.
I don't know if he has the personality for it, though. You can have the knowledge and everything, but you got to be a little bit more, personable when you're calling these games. I don't know that he really comes off that way.
Yeah, the other name was mentioned it was Sean McVay, like as if he was just going to walk away from coaching. He's not even 40 years old yet.
Yeah, that doesn't make that makes no sense.
Right?
But he's still one of the prominent coaches in football right now. So to walk away, right in the middle, right in your prime there, you're not even in your prime yet, would make little sense.
The AFC's got Burrow, Mahomes, obviously Josh Allen. There's a lot of great quarterbacks. The NFC side seems wide open, Andrew, with Rodgers and Brady possibly being gone. And after those two, I don't know who Stafford might be the class of the NFC quarterback lot. It sounds like the NFC is all of a sudden going to be wide open. In the AFC, you're going to be watching some great quarterback battles for years to come.
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see who takes the reins here in the NFC and takes the mantle, because right now the obvious choice is Matthew Stafford, but there's a lot of things at play here, and it'll be interesting to see how some of these teams. I mean, maybe Dak Prescott. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, I guess if he stays over there. But it definitely seems that the young quarterback talent is definitely leaning towards that AFC, which makes the road for the Eagles a little bit more interesting. We'll obviously keep watching the offseason. We're going to start to talk some draft. We'll look at these matchups on Thursday when Andrew returns for football at 4. All right, Andrew, that was the quick 20 minutes.
It always is, man.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you Thursday.